right, so I'm just going to tie a parachute Adams. I'm going to do it with a little bit different flavor. Just do a few things just a little bit differently outside the norm. It'll still look like a parachute Adams at the end. My thread that I'm using is 30 denier GSP. I really like GSP for especially doing parachutes and stuff like that. Any kind of dry fly work. So I'm on a size 12 standard dry fly hook. And I'm going to use some Snowshoe rabbit foot for the wing post. And so you just want to clean this out pretty good. You're going to get a good amount of geef underneath there. And we want to kind of thin that down a little bit. Now you don't need to stack it or anything. It doesn't stack super well to begin with, but I kind of like the just the craziness and the look of it. That's one of the nice things I think about tying with some snowshoes. It just kind of gives you this nice modern, hey, I'm a bug look, and I'm coming out all over the place. So you want to line it up so it's relatively the distance of the wing. My thread's in the third position, and do a couple of pinch loops right on top, tighten down, and I'll come back forward before I cut out the back and prop up my post. And depending on how much it flares, you may want to build the post right away or wait until you've cut out the backside and tied it down. My backside didn't flare too much this time, so I'll go ahead and build the post. And it can be a little finicky to build the post. So you just want to take your time to do it. Now I usually come up on my post. I had somebody ask me on one of my other videos when I was tying a parachute, how high do I bring the post up? And typically it's about the same distance up as it is from the front of to behind the eye of the hook from the post, if that makes sense. So I like my post as tall as this section right here. And obviously that's a preference thing, so some people like really short posts, and that's fine. I don't know that this is exceptionally tall, but it's just a good gauge. Okay, now it's a little tricky for me to do this because normally I sneak my hand in right where the camera is. So I'm trying to get that out of my way, and I'm cutting this opposite of what I normally do. We want to cut that off at a taper and tie this all down. And you can make several passes. Come in and clean up the post if you need to a little bit. Make sure it's all nice and tight before you move on. Rabbit's kind of fluffy. Okay, now I'm going to work back to about the barb. Next I'm going to put in my tail. So what I have here is just a feather off of a brown rooster, and I've got some I'm running a little short on long barbed, or actually I should say I'm out of long barbed regular grizzly, so I'm using some grizzly Coq de Leon, which I have an abundance of, and I'm just going to line up the tips of both so they're out to one side, and I'll kind of pinch them in place so the tips are relatively the same length. If you have a hard time doing this, you can, once you've removed them, you can absolutely cut off all this back end stuff and put it into a stacker. But I don't mind my tail on flies like this being a little uneven. I think it just helps add to the movement and everything. So you just want your tail to be at least the length of the shank. I like to go about a quarter past, just so that it gives that extra different distance, so that the you can have that 3-point stance. Pinch that into place and adjust anything I need to right here. That looks pretty good. I'll put a wrap in on my way back just to help keep that tail propped up, and then I can come in and trim this out. So if you've watched one of my parachute videos, they're pretty much going to be all the same. I've found the way that I personally like to tie parachutes, and so I pretty much tie all of them the same way. I may change if I do a hopper video or something like that, but the methodology is the same. So on the way back, just to kind of tighten up the body, I'll sneak a couple wraps underneath. You can kind of lift up on the tail and then tighten down. And then when you do that, bring your thread up onto the thread base you've already made, and then that'll help keep your tail already sitting out to the side, or out to the back, I'm sorry, and not flop over the side. Alright, so I'm going to come back up front, just behind the post. And so one thing I'm going to do a little different here is I've got my grizzly and my furnace with the convex sides facing one another. So that's why you'll see full color, on both sides. And I'm going to strip out a 1/4 inch or so. Sorry, I know I'm out of camera for a lot of this. I just don't have a lot of room to work with a camera right in my face. And now I'm going to line up my top barb, or my lowest barb with the top of my post. I'm just going to put a couple of wraps in. I'll tie it in coming forward. Oh, I lost one there. And third time's the charm. Nope, I don't have enough stripped off. That's my problem. That's alright. We all make these minor mistakes. I just choose to keep mine on camera and on video. Because if I'm making these mistakes, there's a good chance you're making these mistakes. And I'd just soon show you how to correct them as we're going. There's no such thing as a perfect fly until you get into salmon tying, and that's a different ball game. So I'm going to lift my barbs right up the side, or the stems, and tie them in all the way up so that the barbs start at the top of the post. Work my way back down. And I will 100% bend and check my barbs to make sure that they open up correctly as we're coming around before I move on. And that can be a big deal if you're not used to tying parachutes, making sure that your stems are going the direction that's going to work. Okay, sneak one more lower wrap in before we start. Okay, so for the body, what I've just got here is some Adams gray, and I snuck in just a very small amount of SLF prism in light gray, just to kind of give it a little bit of a flash body. And you don't need much. Let me re-pull that. Just kind of get it started, take it up, put in a couple of turns, and then we can twist it. Keep it tight to the, whoops, help keep it tight to the thread. Alright, and this guy's just kind of hanging out. Sorry, I'm moving my vise a whole lot here when I normally do. And you can twist and pull each time you come around. Well, that dubbing just all came undone. Gets a little hard with the prism because it doesn't want to stick. And if it's on the inside and it's trying to catch your thread, you can use wax here. I just don't use a ton of wax. I know there's some fly tyers that say wax everything, and it's not bad if you do. Redub this with some new dubbing. But you don't have to. Alright. Let's back this up. Tie it in together. There we go. Well, that one piece of dubbing is just giving me fits. That's okay, dubbing will do that. There we go. Now we can kind of twist it together, bring it forward. Sometimes you have to fight it a little bit. So don't get discouraged, just back it off and do it again until you got it. Okay. I'll bring it to the front side of my post. I'm going to add just a little bit more. And on my parachutes, I figure eight them around the post base, just to help clean up any extra stuff that's there. All right, now we're in business. I'm just kind of dub this forward. Okay. You know, sometimes this little stuff happens. So hopefully watching some of these little mishaps helps you. And we're going to go ahead and whip finish. I just colored my GSP black. And I can make this little tiny head, just like a mayfly. With that. Alright, now let's invert the fly. Now I'm not going to use any glue on this one. Usually I glue this shut. So I'll do it a different way this time. Where we just whip finish. I don't usually whip finish because it can trap barbs. And the glue just seals it all shut. But you're not going to want to do that every time. So what I'll do is I'll take my GSP and I'll twist it around my thread. If you're using bigger thread like 8/0 or something like that, you got to be careful doing that little technique because it can build up too much bulk too quickly. But you can absolutely glue that shut. We won't do that on this one. So next, it's time to wrap the hackle. And just have to work it until it starts to flare open in the correct orientation. And so I'm going to get my hackle that I've kind of placed abnormally from what you see in a lot of videos together. And what this allows you to do is work your thread in there. And if you work it at an angle and bring it and kind of swoop it around, you can catch these barbs and lift them back up, kind of like you're seeing right here. And I'll do this like 3 or 4 times. Work to the back, lift up, work to the back, lift up before I come to the back side of the hackle to catch it. And it's going to minimalize the amount of hackle that you trap. You just want to keep it tight as you go around. Okay. Now I can come in and trim this out. And before I whip finish, I will take a finer pair of scissors and come in and get anything that's lying in a downward position along the body. When you do this, make sure you rotate your vise in the direction that's wrapping your thread in the correct manner, just meaning that it's like it's wrapping forward, you're not undoing it. If you haven't, just in case you haven't put enough wraps in, you're not undoing your work. So there we go. This is just fine-tuning the fly. Okay, and now we can whip finish. All right. And when you do this, you want to kind of work your whip finish in the same direction, trying to get on the bottom side of any hackle that's in there. The nice thing about clear GSP is that it will kind of take on the color of whatever you have when you pull it tight, or you can color it. I'll bring this up. And so there's just a little bit different of a look to a Parachute Adams. We'll come in here and do a little cleanup work just to make sure everything is on the up and up. And so, you know, take your time building flies. I see so many people in a rush. Speed comes with experience. And I don't try to claim that I'm the speediest person. I do like to tie nice flies though, if possible. And then just to finish it off, I'll take my thumb and kind of push the snowshoe straight down. Right on top. Just kind of give it that crazy look. So just a little bit different material and look for the Parachute Adams. And so give it a try. If you like the video, as always, appreciate a thumbs up, like, subscribe, share. And other than that, happy tying, everybody. Take care, and as always, we'll see you next time.